Okay, let's talk about something huge, but kind of invisible. Today we're going to pull back the curtain on the institutions that are, well, basically running the whole global economy.
So who really runs the global economy? I mean, think about it. That phone in your hand, the coffee you might be sipping on right now, all of it is part of this massive, complex global system. A system that has to have rules, right? It needs referees. But who's making those rules? And maybe the bigger question is, are those rules still fair for everybody?
All right, so here's the puzzle. Our world is just completely interconnected. You've got hundreds of countries, each with its own agenda, and they all have to somehow work together on gigantic issues like trade, finance, you name it. How on earth do you get them to play nice and agree on anything? Because, let's be real, without some kind of rule book and someone to enforce it, the whole thing would be chaos. I'm talking constant trade fights, financial meltdowns, just total uncertainty. So these institutions, they were built to create a predictable framework, a stable playing field for everyone.
So how did they solve this puzzle? Well, right after World War II, a handful of really powerful institutions were set up to be the guardians of the global economy. Let's meet the Big Three.
Okay, so the main players are the IMF, the World Bank, and the WTO. Think of it like this. The IMF is the emergency room doctor. When a country's economy is crashing, they rush in. The World Bank, that's more like a global construction firm, funding huge long-term projects to build countries up. And the WTO, well, that's the trade referee, blowing the whistle and making sure everybody plays fair.
So let's get a little more specific. The IMF's whole deal is financial stability, handing out emergency loans when things go south. The World Bank has a different mission, fighting poverty by bankrolling big projects like dams, roads, and schools. And the WTO is all about the rules of trade. Their job is to knock down protectionism, when countries put up unfair barriers to protect their own industries.
Okay, but here's the twist. The world today looks nothing like it did when these groups were founded. And the system, well, it's starting to show its age. You can actually see the cracks starting to form in the foundation of this whole global setup.
I mean, the whole economic map has been redrawn. You've got these huge emerging economies that are now major players. And then you throw in modern problems like global pandemics or climate change. These are things the original architects never even dreamed of. And all of it is putting a ton of stress on a system built for a bygone era.
And this creates something experts call a legitimacy gap. Basically, a lot of these rising economic powers look at the system and say, hey, this isn't fair. Their voting power, their say in how things are run, it just doesn't match how big their economies actually are. So you get this growing frustration, this feeling of being left out of a system that's just too slow to change.
So what you end up with is this giant global tug of war. You got one side pulling hard, trying to reform the system, but on the other side, you've got some serious obstacles digging their heels in, refusing to budge.
Let's look at who's pulling on each end of the rope. On the side pushing for change, you have the reality of that shifting economic power we talked about. You have those legitimacy issues, and you have these repeated global crises. Think the 2008 financial crash or the pandemic, that are just screaming proof that the old way isn't working. But pulling back against them, you've got the old guard, the existing power structures. You have just plain old institutional inertia. We've always done it this way. And of course, a whole lot of geopolitical rivalry. And this is the key thing to get. Fixing this isn't just a technical problem you can solve with a spreadsheet. No, this is deeply, deeply political. The established economies aren't exactly eager to give up their power, right? And the emerging countries sometimes have a hard time agreeing on exactly what they want. So progress is painfully slow because you need everyone to agree and everyone wants something different.
So, if changing the rules is this difficult, what's the answer? Well, what if the final piece of this puzzle isn't about rewriting the rule book, but about something else entirely? What if it's about a totally new kind of leadership?
And that's where this idea of ethical leadership enters the picture. Now, this isn't just about being a nice person. It's a whole strategic way of making decisions. It's about fairness, transparency, and accountability. It's about that incredibly tricky balancing act between what's good for your own country and what's good for the entire world.
And this quote just nails it. It says that ethical leadership isn't just some moral aspiration, it's a strategic necessity. Think about that. In a world lurching from one crisis to the next, trust is the only currency that really matters. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. Without it, the whole system of cooperation just breaks.
So why is it so essential? Well, for one, it builds that trust and legitimacy we were talking about, which these institutions are kind of running low on. 2, when a crisis hits, like a pandemic or a financial shock, you absolutely need leaders who make decisions that feel fair to everyone. That's what keeps countries working together instead of pointing fingers and falling apart.
So really, the big takeaway is this. To be a real leader on the world stage today, being a technical whiz with economics, it's just not enough. You also have to have a rock-solid ethical compass and a keen sense of the political landscape. You need that to navigate the tough choices between what's best for your own people and what's best for the planet. And that really leaves us with one final big question to chew on. In a world that feels more divided than ever, facing challenges we've never seen before, what does true economic leadership even look like anymore? The answer to that is probably going to define the world we all live in.